What is good, YouTube, and welcome back to MKE Maniaci, and today we got 10 WWE wrestlers Vince McMahon was right about. Rare Vince W. Nah, I'm playing. So listen, I know us as wrestler fans, we can be very critical on Vince and Kennedy McMahon's decisions over the years, man, but we gotta give credit where credit is due, man. There was moments where, I'm like, hey, Vince was kind of right. So we gonna check out 10 wrestlers that Vince was right about. Let's get it, good and bad.
Became huge in WWE, despite the top brass not believing in them. After all, Vince once thought Austin was a great technician who needed a mouthpiece, and Daniel Bryan's description as a B-plus player was as much a shoot as a work. On the other,
Can you imagine if Austin had like a Paul Heyman at his side? That would be crazy. We wouldn't have got like the fire promos that we got from him.
Description as a B-plus player was as much a shoot as a work. On the other end of the spectrum, Vince McMahon has put all of his focus on many, usually extremely burly superstars who have never quite connected the way that the boss hoped. However, they say that a broken clock is right twice a day, and Vince has been correct at least 10 times in the last 4 decades, because I'm Cy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE wrestlers Vince McMahon was right about.
Let's get it.
Number 10, Randy Orton.
Yes!
If the tales of Randy Orton's backstage antics in his younger days are true, there's a strong argument to be made that he should have been fired by WWE. As for his talent as a sports entertainer, though, Vince McMahon was right to put so much stock into Randall Keith. Orton debuted on the main roster in 2002, positioned as a plucky third-generation babyface. It was very vanilla, but the way WWE talked up Randy and his heritage suggested to the audience the company had high hopes for the youngster. A shoulder injury towards the end of the year forced Orton out of the ring, but quite brilliantly he maintained a presence on TV, providing video updates on his injury, becoming more heelish by the week. By the time he was cleared to return, Randy was placed with Triple H, Ric Flair and Batista as Evolution, and he'd be world champion 18 months later.
Randy Orton is one of my favorite come up stories, man. When I was a kid when he debuted. And it wasn't nothing stuck out about him, and they were talking about, third generation wrestler, as a 7-year-old kid. I'm not thinking 7, 8 years old, I'm not thinking, third generation wrestler, that's so cool. But the way that they pushed it and him making his own legacy, he literally became like the prototype, no pun intended, shout out John Cena, but he became the prototype for what they're doing now with guys like Von Wagner, guys like Braun Breaker, a lot of the second and third generation wrestlers that came in. They hoped that they could attain the same success as Randy Orton, man. Vince was spot on with Orton. This man has been money from the moment that Evolution started all the way up to now, man. Randy is him.
And of course, here we are decades later with Randy Orton a mainstay of WWE for the past 20.
And honestly, what was the whole thing about him? I guess it was a lot of allegations coming out in summer 06. I think he even got suspended that summer. He for sure should have been fired, thing he wasn't.
Years, having won 14 world titles, headlined WrestleManias, been on top as a babyface and a heel, and being a nailed-on first ballot Hall of Famer whenever the time comes for him to hang up his boots. Number 9, Shawn Michaels. Even when the Heartbreak Kid was proving impossible to work with backstage, McMahon forever backed Shawn. When the Rocker split in 1991, Michaels was viewed as having the most potential as a single star. A couple of years later, this destiny was fulfilled, and Vince McMahon basically fell in love, let's be honest. The boss man was so enamored with Michaels that the privileges afforded to him and his clique buddies were at the detriment of the rest of the roster's morale and caused tension with major names such as Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Vader and a rising Steve Austin. For all the headaches Shawn Michaels caused over the years, Vince McMahon always defended him, and Vince's constant faith in the showstopper was rewarded even more so when Shawn returned from retirement in 2002.
What I liked about Shawn's situation, this was a gamble. I heard Shawn was a dick. He was the biggest penis backstage. But in a moment, Vince could have easily, said, forget this guy. Shawn could have went to WCW. But I feel like one of the reasons that he didn't was because Vince, he liked him. Vince trusted Shawn. He invested in Shawn, and I feel like Shawn appreciated that, which is why when you look at the grand scheme of things, there's only one other man other than Shawn that stayed loyal to the WWE in the time that they really needed them the most, and that was The Undertaker. Shawn Michaels, man, yeah, he was right.
By sticking with him, Vince eventually got a Shawn Michaels who was possibly the best wrestler on the planet at the time, but who had none of the problems and baggage of the Shawn Michaels of previous years. That clean, God-fearing Shawn would have an 8-year run, which many would say quality-wise was even better than the Michaels of the 90s. Number 8, Triple H. Clearly, Vince McMahon was a little too invested in Triple H over the years, as countless glacial pay-per-view main events will attest to. However, the real-life Paul Levesque's importance to WWE over the last 25 years cannot be understated. Throughout the Monday Night Wars, whether under his more formal Hunter Hearst Helmsley moniker or simply just Triple H, the Game was one of McMahon's most trusted lieutenants. As Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker and the like were dominating the main event scene, Hunter was one of the mid-card talents propping up the Intercontinental title. When Hart and Michaels were no longer in the picture, slowly but surely Triple H found himself amongst those afforded an opportunity at the top of the card. Not only did McMahon back trips in the ring and on TV, but Vince eventually backed down on his rule of daughter Stephanie not being allowed to date any of the company's talent. Despite those dragging, sagging main events from certain spells of his career, there was a point where Triple H very much was in the conversation as being the best in the world.
Facts. And you know what? And don't count his last few matches that he had. You know, I know Triple H was far from his prime in his last matches in the WWE, but still, man, you got to think about the Attitude Era, ruthless aggression. Man, you talk about just all over ruthlessness. What Triple H used to do on Raw during the Reign of Terror, oh, it was raps. What he did to Shawn, it was raps. His entertainment factor in DX, man, listen, Triple H had every single thing. This man is basically running the company right now, for God's sake. And dated, he piping down Steph, like, that's crazy. And they gave him the company to run pretty much, man. Like, come on, give your credit to Triple H. This was right about the man. All respect to Steph. I didn't mean to say it like that. I just got passionate. I'm sorry.
Added to that, the sheer longevity and reliability of the man as an in-ring performer, and nowadays from a creative and corporate standpoint, means Paul Levesque is one of Vince McMahon's most important ever hires. Number 7, Kevin Nash. When Kevin Nash first entered the then World Wrestling Federation in the summer of '93, he didn't exactly have the best of resumes. Nash was only 3 years into his career, being one half of the Dower Master Blasters and saddled with some pretty awful gimmicks. Of course, the sheer size of Big Kev was something always likely to appeal to Vince McMahon, and thus when Shawn Michaels asked McMahon to sign Nash, it presumably didn't take Vince long to decide to take a punt on the Detroit native. As Diesel, Nash would debut in June '93 and he would be crowned WWF champion less than 18 months later. By anyone's standards, that's an astronomical rise, with Big Daddy Cool going from Michaels' bodyguard to main event attraction in a staggeringly short amount of time. More than this, it was a 358-day reign as champion, with Nash developing into an extremely capable in-ring worker, particularly against the right opponents. Of course, he would jump ship to WCW, but Nash continued to be a main event player, leading the charge as the NWO became the hottest thing in the business. Number 6, Brock Lesnar. Lesnar exploded onto WWE TV in March 2002, and just 5 months later he'd become WWE Undisputed Champion by defeating The Rock at that year's SummerSlam. Lesnar was only 25 years of age at that point and only been training as a pro wrestler for less than 2. The point being, WWE gave Brock the sort of monster push never before seen. For Brock, this was very much sink or swim, and was
You know what's crazy about Brock's situation? Brock Lesnar, when he came in '02, this was a time Brock was nothing like they already had. I think the closest comparison you could have to Brock at that time was Kurt Angle. But Brock was kind of like his own anomaly, really. Like, this was during the time when WWE went from the Attitude Era into ruthless aggression. Brock had intensity. He had a ton of intensity. So, yeah, it was very risky to put the title on him so fast. Because think about it, that's like having somebody start in NXT right now and then have them go to WrestleMania and win and beat Seth or Roman for the title. That's what it was like in terms of back then. Like, it was quick. But Brock did his thing. He left, but he still became a household name elsewhere. He came back and still is a household name.
A huge leap of faith from McMahon. One could argue whether or not that faith was rewarded when Lesnar quit the company just 2 years later, but then one could also point out how Vince's decision to bring back the Beast Incarnate into the fold in 2012 was another case of McMahon being proved right. Many questioned whether Brock had the passion to return to WWE, and while you might be able to argue that it's more about the payday, he's still performing at a high level for WWE 11 years after that shock return. return.
Yeah.
And whilst there have obviously been questions about the way he's been booked in that 11 years, it's not the fault of the talent. Lesnar is clear that he'll do what you ask him to, so long as he gets paid. And from what's been asked of him, he's usually delivered big. Number 5, Edge. When Edge's affair with Lita became public knowledge in 2005, many were left perplexed that Matt Hardy was the one WWE opted to fire. After all, if there was a victim in this situation, it was Hardy, who'd been betrayed by his girlfriend and one of his close friends. Of course, Matt's erratic social media activity and public bashing of Edge and Lita forced WWE's hand somewhat, but it felt extremely harsh to see Hardy the one to lose his job at the time.
He lost his girl and his job, man. But with the WWE, they saw a gold mine with this, because although this wasn't all, this wasn't a work. Like, this was real. Like, Lita was cheating on Matt Hardy with Edge. This was 100% legit. And y'all remember the show Bite This and all the things that went on WWE.com and everything, man. Like, this was like real life tension, man. And at the time, I didn't think that they actually fired Matt, because they brought him back pretty quick. And him and Edge had an incredible rivalry that year, man. That definitely is like top 3 rivalries of 2005 was Edge and Matt Hardy, for sure.
Some in WWE, and particularly supposedly Triple H, were pushing for Edge to be fired once this affair was revealed. Trust had been lost in Adam Copeland. He'd screwed over someone he'd travelled the roads with, and one could understand why there'd be dissension within the locker room and the wider WWE. But Vince McMahon, he refused to listen to the calls for Edge's head, and instead this very real situation became the springboard for what would cement the Canadian as a main eventer. Having struggled to fully pierce the top of the card prior, the Lita affair made Edge the most hated man in the company, and pairing these two lovebirds up on screen made for magnetic heat.
Facts. And think about it though, like, bro really was piping down somebody else's girl, and that gave him a push. The man was already Mr. Money in the Bank. He was piping down this man girl. That gave him a push. He ended up becoming WWE champ. Had a match with Foley at WrestleMania. Edge been on top since. That's crazy.
Kicked off a run that would see Edge become an 11-time world champion. Number 4, Rocky Maivia. Now, did Dwayne Johnson make it to the top of the industry as the same Rocky Maivia who arrived in the WWF shortly before the 1996 Survivor Series? No, absolutely not. But still, Vince McMahon clearly saw something in the blue chipper. Maivia had an athletic background, was a good-looking fellow, and was a third-generation talent who had a wealth of family knowledge to call upon. However, I
know I said Randy Orton, but The Rock's also like a prototype as far as third generation goes.
A smiling, granny-hugging, baby-kissing Rocky just didn't work for the rookie back in '96. Famously, the charismatic Johnson wouldn't find his feet until he was afforded the chance to turn heel the following year and embrace those die Rocky die chants. Grabbing the opportunity with both hands, the villainous Rock persona and his allegiance with the Nation of Domination allowed Dwayne to properly sink his teeth into something and showcase his wit and natural timing.
You know what's crazy? The Rock and Roman kind of have like the same kind of thing, because Roman was pushed, obviously not immediately as a face, because Roman came in as a heel, but there was a time when they were trying to push Roman as a face, they were trying to push The Rock as a face. Didn't work with either. They turned him heel, they formed a group, Nation of Domination, Bloodline. It's like low-key, but The Rock he got accepted as a babyface after the heel turn. We can see if Roman could be accepted as a babyface after this.
I knew there was something there with Dwayne Johnson. It just took months of negative crowd reactions, a knee injury, and a tweak of character to give him the platform to turn Rocky Maivia into someone who would become a WrestleMania headliner, a multi-time world champion, and whose energy and electricity would transcend the wrestling industry. Number 3, Roman Reigns. Much like his cousin Dwayne, Roman Reigns is another who Vince McMahon's faith in was eventually rewarded. However, whereas Rocky Maivia was an ill fit for 6 months before being forced off TV through injury, the ill fit for Roman Reigns was maintained for several years. As the ass-kicking powerhouse of the Shield, Reigns was phenomenal. Then that unit broke up, Seth Rollins became a conniving heel, Dean Ambrose was the fearless, brawling babyface, and Roman just kind of stayed the same. Same ring gear, same...
we ain't gonna sit here and act like, there was a time where we wanted Roman to be that guy. I remember... Was it Survivor Series 2013 or was it Survivor Series 2014? It was one of those years. I think it was 2013-ish. It was around that time. The year before he won the Rumble. He won the Rumble 2015. Before that, we wanted Roman to be that guy. Don't say that you didn't, because we did. We wanted Roman to be that guy. Into 2013, into 2014, We wanted Roman to be that guy. Come on
Music,
now.
same entrance, same mannerisms. It wasn't so much Roman Reigns staying true to his Shield days that was the problem, but more that it didn't take audiences long post-split to let WWE know that they didn't want to see this version of the big dog. Never was this more abundantly clear than the 2015 Royal Rumble, where the victorious Reigns, complete with The Rock endorsing him, was mercilessly booed out of the building. Still, WWE powered forward and had Roman headline the next 4 WrestleManias, all to negative reception. It took a pandemic-enforced break for WWE to finally do something fresh with Roman, and as the tribal chief and the head of the table, he's revered as one of the very best performers on the planet today. Number 2, John Cena.
Yes.
Supposedly, WWE only realised
This should be number 1.
there might be something they could do with John Cena once Stephanie McMahon overheard one of Cena's raps. Still, once the company allowed Cena to showcase that quick thinking and charisma on TV, it didn't take long for them to place hopes on him as being their new poster boy. Even WWE and Vince McMahon likely didn't realise just how big a star John Cena would become and for just how long that star power would remain.
You'll never have another John Cena. You know, I get we could have Roman's dominant, but there will never be another John Cena. I'm telling you this now. There will never be another star as big as John Cena.
There was the Cena Sucks Brigade, but that was a drop in the ocean compared to how reliable, how marketable, how underrated in the ring, discounting that STF, how outright hard-working he was, whether it was headlining a house show in some small town or learning Mandarin and partaking in overseas press conferences. In terms of sheer longevity with the promotion, he is unmatched. Cena won his first world title at WrestleMania 21 back in 2005 and was realistically still a full-time top guy until 2018. He may not be your particular favourite wrestler, but John Cena's credentials are undeniable when looking at how Vince McMahon was right to put so much trust in the former prototype. And number 1, Hulk Hogan. Looking back on the history of WWE under Vince's stewardship,
I can dig it though. You needed Hulk. In order to kickstart what WWE did, it started with Hulk. Let's be honest.
Hulk Hogan is the single most important signing he ever made. Back in '83, with Vince making bold, unheard of plans to expand his recently obtained federation, he needed somebody to pitch his wagon to and spearhead his bonkers plan of national and international domination. Having turned babyface after his appearance as Thunderlips in Rocky 3, Hogan had spent the past 2 years as the most popular star in Vern Gagne's AWA promotion, with charisma dripping out of the Hulkster's mammoth bodybuilding frame. Formally returning to the WWF on the 1st of January 1984 episode of Wrestling at the Chase, a match that was taped 5 days prior, Hogan would defeat the Iron Sheik for the WWF Championship just 22 days later. Storyline-wise, Hulk was a replacement for Bob Backlund, whom Sheik had beaten to win the WWF title, and in a very real sense, Hogan was the hand-picked replacement for him as the poster boy of the promotion as Vince McMahon looked to move his company in a new direction. These days, Hulk Hogan's career has been tarnished by his own horrendous actions, but back in 1983, Vince McMahon was proven extremely right by choosing Hogan as the person tasked with driving the WWF to a new level of global popularity.
Without Hulk Hogan and his contributions, you know, regardless how I may feel about him as an individual, I'll give credit to him, because if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, there wouldn't be a Rock, there wouldn't be a Stone Cold, there wouldn't be a Triple H, a Shawn, a John Cena, a Roman, there wouldn't be a WrestleMania. So Vince was right. 10 WWE wrestlers Vince McMahon was right about. I actually really like this video. Well put together, man. Link down below in the description for y'all to check it out in its entirety with no interruptions. You're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for me for more wrestling related content. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Thank you for watching MKE Maniaci. I'm out.